Okay, you have been saying you want to make more money for years. We're going to plug this problem into our three-step solution. Same 3 steps we use for every problem. Start with what you know is step 1. So, you know you want to make more money, right? Now, this could seem really obvious, but before we go any further, I really want you to take a second to decide that this is something you want. Take a second and decide, is this something that I want, kind of like in the spirit that, like, if it was raining outside, I would want it to be sunny, but like, I don't know. Or you want, like, Beyonce to be your best friend, and it would be really great if she showed up at your doorstep. Is it something you want to happen to you? Or is it something you want to make happen? This is a really important distinction because for most of my last career, we would kind of live in this complaint mode about this want, but I never talked about it in terms of this is something I can and plan to do something about. So I would just hang out with my colleagues who were in the same industry, making about the same amount of money, and we were all in the same boat, right? We kind of talked about it like the weather, like Beyonce. Like, yeah, it'd be nice, but meh. And we stressed about it. We caused a lot of negative emotion. So we were kind of creating this heaviness for ourselves, right? We wanted Beyonce to be our friends, but we were making no effort to like find her. We don't need to go there though. So this is the first thing I want you to decide. Decide if it's something you want in terms of, I want to make this happen, or decide really if you don't want it and you've just gotten stuck in this kind of cultural conditioning of talking about what you don't have. That's totally fine. It's totally normal and innocent. You can also decide to let it go. You can decide, actually, I don't think I really want this. If I had to like wake up in my life today and just assess it and see what I want, maybe you don't want more money. Now, if you do want more money, to continue on in this exercise, I want you to really commit to yourself that this is something that I want to make happen. It's totally different than something you want to happen to you. So, we start with what we know. By this point, we know, if you're still watching, you know you want to make more money. Here's where your brain will often want to go when we assess what we know. Your brain will want to tell you what your options are and aren't based on your experience, qualifications, and age. It will want to tell you what's realistic and what's unrealistic. And it will want to tell you how if you try to change your income and you fail, you will probably ruin your life in all of these very graphic ways. Do not be fooled by your brain. We are simplifying. We're not strategizing yet, and we're also not fortune telling. We're starting with what you know right now. None of those suggestions from your brain about what you're qualified for, what's possible, what's reasonable, how you're going to ruin your life, none of those are facts. Those are not things you know. They are thoughts. Specifically, they are predictions and fears and assumptions, which are heavily influenced by your cognitive biases and your cultural conditioning that we talked about, right? These biases and this conditioning make you extremely and naturally averse to risk and loss and change and rejection and failure and anything new. So we do not need to take these thoughts at face value. We do not need to let this programming determine what you do, right? You're going to take charge of that. So all you need to know in order to move on to step 2 is that you want to make more money and that you want to make it happen. I promise you that's enough to move on. So we're going to keep it simple. We're going to let what you know be enough. We're going to go on to step 2. Step 2 is decide one thing at a time. One decision at a time means calming your brain down to capitalize on the present moment instead of mentally jettisoning yourself into the future where the bunch of problems exist that you cannot currently solve. So what's within your control to decide right now? What doable, simple actions could you take today or within the next 72 hours that could move you one step forward in this journey on your way to getting what you want? Now, your brain might want to push back here and demand more information and more time. It will say that this is more complicated. It will say that you need to decide first what you want to do for the rest of your life, then you can make your master plan for your income. Or it will say that you need to wait until your debt is paid down, until you earn a promotion. Then it's realistic, reasonable to expect more money. Pay attention to this because it's showing you where your brain is giving away your power. Anywhere your brain wants to focus right now as a problem is what it is making in charge of how much money you can have. And it might even feel true. It might seem like it makes a lot of sense. I do have to wait for this, or I do need to decide this. It might feel true. But you know that is not the perspective that's going to get you what you want. We're going to try a different perspective on so that you can get what you want, which is more money. If you were in charge of how much money you make, which really just means we're saying that no one else or nothing else outside of you is ultimately the decider of how much money you get to enjoy in this life, which I really hope you're on board with that idea. If you need to rewind and listen to it again, I highly recommend that you get on board with this idea right now, that you are in charge, which just means no one else gets to decide how much money you get to have and enjoy in this lifetime. So if we decide, if you were in charge of that, what could you do now to exercise that power? What is within your control? Brainstorm options and do not let your brain shut every idea down automatically. Because remember, we're not on an obstacle hunt. The information we're looking for is not what are my limitations. It's what are my solutions. So if we decide you get to be in charge of making more money, if you want to, and we decide it's possible for you to exert some kind of influence there now, what comes to mind? There's no right or wrong answer. So the point is to lovingly force your brain to answer this question. What can I do right now that could affect my income? Notice that we're not asking, how can I double my income overnight? Right? Although if you can, by all means, please do that. Make one decision that can move you forward here. And let it be easy if you already have an inkling. If you already have some idea about what you would do. Half the time people come to me stuck with this problem, they already can tell me what they would be doing if they weren't holding themselves back. So if that's true, listen to that idea, right? If you're already thinking, I should schedule a promotion conversation with my boss, or I should email a mentor for advice, or decide how much money I want to make this year. That's a really good one. We're going to get back to that later. Spend 30 minutes finding out what opening an Etsy shop entails, right? Or create a Poshmark account and list something to sell. Or look up your alumni association's career counseling resources, or ask someone who works for themselves to a coffee chat to find out what that's like. No wrong answer. Now your brain might be a little judgmental about this decision. It might think it's like the dumbest thing that you've ever thought to do. It may think this is a worthless waste of time and it's not going to get you anywhere, right? It might be rolling its eyes like, okay, great. I've decided to make this bold declaration that I'm going to make more money. Let me send one email. Watch the cash roll in. So this is naysaying, and this is exaggerating, and it's why you are continually stuck in this problem. It's because your brain's reflexes have dictated your actions up until this point. So just don't stand for it. Notice that it might want to go there, and let that not be a reason to not take the action. Because you're putting too much pressure on yourself to have all of the information before you take one step forward. Your brain is saying, okay, but we need to know like what that person who I'm emailing could even tell us and if they're even going to write back. And this is probably a non-starter and I should just figure out my own giant life career change on my own first. Listen, anything is a non-starter that you don't start. You get to remain in charge of that decision. But I need to remind you, not starting has landed you where you are now. It has created the results you are currently experiencing. And the same goes for whatever bigger thing your brain wants to do. If your brain is judging this as a small, insignificant action, whatever it's telling you you should just do instead, I need you to be honest. If you could do that, you would have done it. If it was that easy, it would be done by now. Our brains put this pressure on us all the time to just make the decision, just figure it out. And I want to tell you, human to human, if it was doable in that way, it would be done already. So it's time to try another way. Now, if you don't have one of those inklings, if you haven't been considering like sending an email to this mentor, looking up this option, getting more information, here's how I want you to find your decision to make, your one decision at a time decision. Decide how much money you want to make this year. Every single person I've ever asked to answer that question, how much money do you want to make, has never thought about it before. It's such a fun question to answer. Now, your brain is going to want to go to the past and look at how much can I reasonably say. My income is 80 grand. So like maybe I want to make 83 this year, 85 if I'm getting crazy. It's going to try to want to do the math first. And I really want you to let yourself have a chance to make up your own mind. Don't let your mind make itself up for you. How much money would you really like to make this year? Don't make it so ridiculous that you roll your eyes at it and don't take it seriously, like $500,000 if your income really is generally around 80. But would you like to make $100,000? We don't need to know the how. Let yourself off the hook for that, just for this exercise. Because you get to go brainstorm that next. You get to imagine all the ways that appeal to you that you could make that amount of money. And let yourself just make it up, right? It's like reality A. In reality A, I make $100,000 by getting $80,000 from my day job and then $20,000 from monetizing my blog. I don't know, that could be fun. I don't know how much money you can make off blogs, but like maybe that's a reality. Who knows? Reality B, maybe I like sell my art and I make $100,000 from selling art only. Maybe that's a reality possibility, right? Reality C, I get a certification and it bumps me up in my salary range, whatever, right? It's fun to include at least one crazy option here, just to make sure you stretch your brain outside the limits of the reasonable, so you get the most out of this brainstorming. So once you have some things on paper about how could this number even come to be, making it up, this gives you options for your one decision, right? If you did have this idea, like maybe I could monetize my blog, I don't know what that is, make your one decision today, find out. Make that attainable information, decide you can find out, and then take one step forward in that direction. Now, step 3 is manage your energy. And this is going to be a really important one for you to keep moving forward in this process because you're going to keep repeating this, right? Steps 1 through 3, we always do the same. This is how we move ourselves forward from point A to point B. And point B is where more money is. So you want to step your way there. So you're going to repeat, what do I know? Make one decision based on that. Keep assessing. You're going to keep getting new information. You're going to keep increasing the amount of things you know. Everything, every decision that you make, everything that you do will create more information. Now you need to manage your energy through this by paying attention to where your mind wants to go. So note the naysaying. Yeah? Notice when it tells you you can't move forward because of whatever reason. You don't know enough, you've gotten as far as you can go, you're not being reasonable. Just remember its job is to protect you and it's fine, but that's not what we're doing here. We're making you more money. So this process of starting with what you know and then making one decision will always bring you back to being in charge of the results that you want and looking at it from a solution-focused perspective. Yes, this is what we want. Okay, this was a really big training, but when you break it down, it really is as simple as those 3 steps, just repeating them over and over again. And starting with this commitment that this is something I want and I want to make it happen. And of course, it's always easier to do it with help. So you want to talk about how coaching will help you put all of this into practice and really enforce your commitment to making these results certain. You book your consult and we'll talk about it. It's free. It's a free hour to just talk about how are we going to make you more money. In the meantime, keep coming back for more resources on how to make your plan and stick to it. You've got this. Go make more money.